Welcome to the podcast. The Aging Queen. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome back to another episode of The Aging Queen. My name is Louis Canetti. I'm here with our wonderful guests, James from Columbus, Ohio, and Robbie from Madrid, Spain. How are you guys?
Hi.
Hi, good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
You guys ready for the election year?
No.
Hmm.
Actually, Robbie, do you vote in the US elections?
Yeah, always from abroad. Votefromabroad.org. You fill out a form and they do everything else for you. Yeah,
And
That's
voting
awesome.
abroad now, that those votes are actually super important because
they
it's
are.
been so
Like
tight.
in the previous episode, you said that there were 9 million Americans abroad.
Yep.
So there's a lot of us.
That's awesome.
And now a lot of these boomers are retiring abroad. There's even more
Yeah.
every year, more and more. So it's not just the remote living, working situation, it's also the retirement folks. So on today's episode, we are discussing the election. We're also discussing gay Republicans. Um, I don't know if any of you
Mhm.
are gay Republicans. I'm not.
Nope.
No.
But I will say the libertarians.
Oh.
Very few things, but there's some things that they say that I kind of like, okay, maybe. Um, I don't know. I think bigger government or small government, if you want a bigger government, it's got to be run really well. And if not, just get out of my way. That's how I feel. Stop taxing me so much or whatnot.
I
Um,
just I just thought how how crazy would it have been if I would have said yes, I am a gay black Republican.
hey, they exist.
Yeah.
I know they exist. I know they exist, but I just in my mind I'm like so that's so not me.
So gay Republicans, for those listeners who don't know, are also called log cabin Republicans. Um, I don't know exactly why they're called log cabins, but I'm sure we will find out in a little bit.
Is there a gay group for gay Democratic uh, people? Gay
I'm sure
Democrat.
there
Gay,
is.
yeah. Because log cabin Republicans are very famous. Like if you say gay Republican, most people in the United States would
A log
know
cabin, yeah.
log cabin. But if you said gay Democrat, they
It's half of DC.
right, like they'd probably just be like, "That's just standard." I don't know, like what is that?
Yeah.
Well, log cabin Republicans. Well, it was formed in 1977, headquartered here in D.C. Wikipedia says log cabin Republicans were formed in 1977 in California. They're based in D.C. now as a rallying point for Republicans opposed to the Briggs Initiative, which attempted to ban homosexuals from teaching in public schools and proposed legislation authorized the firing of those teachers who publicly supported homosexuality. Okay.
So I am 1 year older than the log cabin Republican Party. That's
Yep.
fine.
Yeah. So it's an election year. It's kind of like round two from 4 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Biden and Trump.
Yeah.
Not officially on the ballots, but that's where we're heading.
hmm
Um,
Mm.
what do you guys think? Is this the? Well, I mean, who do you vote for? Right? I mean,
So I can say like from my experience, like the so last year I traveled to Iceland for my birthday, and I was there for a week. And while I was there, you know, I met several people, and one of the conversations that I had a couple of times was, so Biden and Trump. Like that was
again,
they were like, really, you guys don't have any other options other than Biden and Trump? Um,
I know we have 350 million people in this country.
right, and then I had to explain, how our political system works, and it's like it's a lot of times I guess we feel like we don't really have
Well,
that choice,
I'm glad you know to explain because most people don't even know. I don't even think the system knows.
Well, I mean, obviously, like. even though look there, I explained to them, that there are two major systems, the Democrats and the Republicans. I said two major parties, and I said obviously there are other parties, but they're just not as popular. So what ends up happening is whichever third party candidate gets a lot of votes, what ends up happening is they end up taking those votes from the leading person in
Who
this
in
case.
this case is Rob
Right.
Kennedy Jr.
Right. So in this case, like w- so I said, but in all honesty, I said for most people, it's not that we really have much of a choice when it comes to the major candidates. Like these candidates are picked by people who are supposedly supposed to be like representing us, like these delegates from the states. But I personally, like what happens is, like when I go to vote for my candidate, whoever wins, that's, I guess, technically who my vote is supposedly going to. And technically, my delegate is supposed to vote for for the winning candidate. You know, that's the way, I guess, what is it called? The
Electoral
electoral
college.
college should technically work.
I
As
think the
it,
gay Republicans are hotter. I'm sorry, I'm on
I
the log cabin website, and I'm like, okay, this is gonna make
I
me.
can't really say anything in
I'm
that.
gonna change jackets here.
oh
Yeah.
no.
That would be no. So my very first boyfriend was a log cabin Republican. We were together for a little over 8 years.
For an election cycle.
Yes, but we honestly we did not talk about politics. That was one of the subjects we just didn't talk about. Which
Did you purposefully not talk about it because
no,
it would annoy you, or just
no, it
haphazardly
was
not?
it was just one of those things. It was like our conversation regarding any sort of election was, hey, are you going to go vote? And that would be it. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go and vote, and that's it. Like, we did not discuss who we voted for, and thinking back on it, I don't know why. It was just natural. It wasn't. We didn't have an agreement. We had other things that we fought over, so we just never talked about politics, never. But I knew that he was a log cabin Republican. Like I will say that I don't know how much you know about US politics, but I will say that he was a distant relative of Jesse Helms.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So, yes.
Well,
Oh, well, at least they're against the conversion therapy. It says on their website. In no way do we condone or recommend conversion therapy. Good job, guys. God, they're
Well,
hot and
wow,
they won't.
one topic
right.
I know. I
out of
mean,
Right.
many.
well, yeah.
Yes.
We don't. You know what? I may turn into a log cabin.
Oh gosh, no,
Really?
please no.
I'm
Guys,
I'm
look at the
why?
website. It's like
Because they're
Abercrombie and Fitch on these guys. You
That's how
know,
they get you in.
right.
Be
And
hot
then
like
they
us.
put the
and
pretty
then
ones on the website.
and then you have to vote for Trump,
Oh no,
Ugh.
forget it. Forget it.
Ugh.
right?
We can be log cabin independents. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Well,
Marianne for the win. Board
right.
lady.
I mean, I don't know how that man is not disqualified. I mean, now he's
No.
technically a felon, right?
I
And
I thought the same thing, honestly. I thought that there was a law against felons being
well, they
elected
can't
president.
vote. I guess you can run.
Right. I
I
that's
think he can vote still because he's a
Felons?
Florida resident.
He can't vote for
oh,
himself. Oh, because of Florida,
Mm,
you can. Yeah,
mm,
but yeah, the
I'm
irony is
not
that
sure of the ins and outs, but yeah, it's unfortunately it's the system that we have. Gonna have to, you know, make a decision.
between one or the
right.
other.
And your
Yeah.
decision's gonna be between either Biden or Trump. One of
And
the
you got
Yeah.
or you got Kennedy there in the independent wing there.
Brain worms? No. I'd
Would you
rather
have
be orb lady.
But it's
I
again, yeah. What is the worm thing? I heard that
Yeah.
passively on the news.
he
What?
had
What's?
he said he had brain worms.
Yeah.
Why do we
Yeah.
need to know this?
I have no idea.
Honestly,
Why did
in
it
my
come up?
mind, it doesn't really matter because if you're like I said, if you're a third party candidate, you do not have a high chance of winning. You really don't. And for him, I'm assuming he's probably, I mean, he's a Kennedy, so I would imagine that he's probably most certainly cashing in on the Kennedy name,
Oh
Mhm.
yeah, I mean,
you
of
know.
course.
So, but then of course the whole brainworm thing, that's just weird.
Yeah,
So,
that was kind of out of left field.
right.
And all of his other past as well is kinda sus, so,
Yes,
even
yes.
before Brainworms, he was a no for me.
Hmm.
Let's check out his website, see what kind of models he has on here.
How much
I
money he wants.
wouldn't think that he would have models like the log cabin recovers like Republicans.
See, it made you
The
nervous 'cause
log
they're hot.
cabin recovery.
You got nervous because 'cause they're hot. You see, you're on the website, I can tell.
I'm not on the website. I have no idea what they look like.
Oh, it's like yeah,
So,
it's like Abercrombie. They're
well, I was
literally
gonna say, I,
they're all
I
these
mean,
Midwestern types of, we believe in wholesome standards, and
I
they're
will
pretty.
tell
That's
you,
why.
I will tell you that Abercrombie is based here in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
So,
now everything makes sense.
yes, so I can say that in the past I have gone to some parties where there have been Abercrombie models um at the parties. So, yeah.
Democrats need these models. I mean, it really makes a difference. It's
Well, Democrats need to stand on values, but oh well.
sounds like we're just not happy with anyone, huh? Is that
Nope.
what it is?
Well,
Mm-mm.
so I guess my honestly, like my feeling on US politics is that there needs to be rules set up. For one, like if you hit a certain age or you hit a certain number of terms, then you have mandatory retirement, and we don't have that. Like, so there are
Right.
people who have been in power for all of my life and longer who, can barely stand up, but they just don't want to give it up. And they're still making rules for us based on the 1950s. And of course, it's 2024. Values have changed, you know.
No
so it,
hot guys on the Kennedy website, but
so it would be so in my mind, it would be really sort of helpful if we had more people that were like more like us, more of our age, because I personally can't say, like, I don't like if I'm a 90-year-old, while I have the utmost respect for my elders, I also can't
I
say
don't.
that, well, I should say, like, I mean,
you should,
I
Robbie.
say my elders, not necessarily like the elders in Congress,
Mm.
but but you know, it's kind of like if you're still trying to make laws like it's 1954 and it's 2024, I mean, that's you need to step down. You know,
Yeah, but let's talk about who really is in charge of not just this country. Who's in charge of corporations and people with money. That's
Right.
basically it.
yes, of
So
course.
you
Oh
have the
yeah.
money, you can buy yourself a politician in any country. It just depends. Is it corruption or is it sophisticated
Or
corruption?
is it lobbying, which
Or
is
is it
just
lobbying?
corruption?
'Cause there's
Right.
a lot of stuff that goes on here that's actually illegal in most places. They just name it something different. You can't physically give money directly, or you can to a certain amount to an elected official that's running. But if you get a PAC, a political action committee, there's no limit, and they can put ads for you and do stuff on your behalf. So it's kind of like, okay, wait, if you have so much money, you will have influence. That just it's going to happen. So,
True,
um,
and that's honestly why when politicians do retire, most of them are rich.
yeah,
Very.
Yeah.
and they say that they're like, how these people. Well, I know exactly why. Is because they're put on boards and given huge salaries, and speaking fees are in the
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands, and
Exactly.
then they all write books.
Yep.
So they all get nice deals. No one leaves the office poor, that's for sure.
That is true.
But I don't really care about that. It's when you have that exposure, you have that platform, and you deserve to have money that comes along with it. Sure,
Mhm.
that's not the issue. I don't care about that because people and companies are gonna come and want you on their team, and they're gonna give you money, and you're no longer an official, and you can take it. But the problem is, I'm talking more about the lobbying groups and how things that the government, for instance, should be looking after, fracking for an example.
Not
Uh,
fracking.
Fracking is horrible for the environment,
Mhm.
but it's like everything else. It's like the tobacco lobby. If you bring in your own doctors to make your own science, then people will believe it. You can argue anything.
Yeah.
Um, so I just think that until you change the rules of the game's not going to change.
Well, the problem is most people are not going to change the rules because it's benefiting them.
Yep.
That's like they're never gonna establish term limits in Congress because
Well, no, and they should.
why would I limit myself if I can be here, if I can get elected as many times as I want and be in Congress for the rest of my life and make all this money and do all these things? Why would I limit that? Same with, like, I guess any sort of legislative thing. Like the president is limited by 2 terms, but that's only
But you can run
because
again and again if you
Well,
skip.
for
well
now it is. If
well
Trump
it's
Trump wins,
right,
that's
but
definitely going to change.
No, but
but the
it's 2 consecutive terms. It doesn't mean that you can't skip one 4-year
well,
cycle and then do it again.
so here's the thing, like, there has been one president in US history who was elected president and then didn't win the election and then won the next election. So he had 2 terms, but they weren't consecutive.
Well,
Nobody else.
Roosevelt, so he was for many years.
Roosevelt had 4
Yeah,
terms, and that is the reason why
they put term limits in.
they took term limits on it, because they were like, no, no, no. For, like, basically they said no one should. It's kind of interesting how um, certain rules of the I guess it's the executive branch here in the United States are based on George Washington.
Hmm.
Like, you can't, like, they basically said George Washington had 2 terms, so any sitting president, they should never have more terms than George Washington.
Good old Jorge Washington.
Right. Same with, like, I guess another interesting fact that I found out about George Washington was that several generals had higher ranks than him, and so the U.S. government said no one should ever have a higher rank than George Washington. So I think they made him like a 6-star general.
No
so like,
crap.
so like,
Well,
well after he's dead, so
the
that no
one who
one could
had
ever outrank him.
the money there was Martha.
Well,
She came from a super duper wealthy
right.
landowning
That's
family.
true. That's true. But anyway, going back to the election. Um,
We're having European elections tomorrow in
I think
Spain.
it's just it's a big election year
Hmm.
everywhere.
so I guess, how does that work I mean, I'm assuming because you still have a royal family in Spain, which
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't elect them.
right,
No,
exactly, like they're there for life. Um,
for now.
oh,
Who
oh,
It's not gonna change. It's not gonna change. But you
knows?
have elections in Spain.
This is for the European Parliament,
Okay.
so not this one, but like it. Whenever the prime minister wants or president, it depends on the language that you're speaking. In Spanish, it's presidente, and in English, we should say prime minister. But whenever Pedro Sanchez wants, he can hold an election, and then everyone goes to vote. Whatever the limit is for however many years, I think it's supposed to be 5, but I don't think it's ever gotten to that length in a very long time. Vast majority of the elections, at least
2 years or something.
since I've been a citizen, is because of political problems and turmoil and vote of no confidence and et cetera, et cetera. So the we go to vote a lot more often, but yeah, it's always on a Sunday. People can have the day off of work. Everybody has the right to, if you're a citizen, being able to access to vote is very important. It's not as secretive as it is in the US. It's very open. It's
And
kind
it's
of
also in
weird.
boxes,
there's
right? It's a
no there's
machine.
no booths. It's
Yeah.
all out in the
oh,
open. Everybody just goes into a school gymnasium, grab a piece of paper, fold it up, put it in an envelope, and depending on the election, it'll be 2 pieces of paper or 3 pieces of paper, one for the Senate and one for the Congress, another one for Europe or whatever. So it depends on what the election is for. Sometimes it's only just one, but there's always scandals. There's always people saying the wrong thing. There's always the far right being dorks. There's always things going on, but the rise of the far right is pretty scary. So we got to go out there and vote and make sure that we squash that in the butt.
That was
But
actually
voting
something
is
I was
only
going to
one
ask.
thing. You have to work in other ways as well. Sorry, James, what were you going to say?
No, no, I'm sorry. I said that's actually something I was going to ask you about. I was going to ask you about, like if the far right is as prevalent in Spain as it is here in the United States, and I was also going to ask if you have dual citizenship from Spain and the United States.
The far right is unfortunately looking at the US and getting ideas,
Yes.
and
And they
that's
don't have hot log cabins. Go.
I mean, there are some good-looking right-wing politicians in Spain, but there's also very good-looking left-wing politicians in Spain. And yes, I have both. So at least
Okay.
both. So I'm not going to dox myself on camera or anything, but yeah, I vote here in Spain and I vote in the U.S. And
Okay.
yeah, I'm. I try to be as politically active as possible, but also it's not just the president you got to think of. You also have to vote down ballot. You have
Right.
to,
Yeah, but you don't actually
Right.
vote in most European countries and in Spain. You don't vote for the person. You're voting for the party.
right.
So you're the head of the party at that moment is
Can be
Sanchez,
whoever.
but it could be whoever, and sometimes they switch them on you.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
So it's you're not really voting like here. You're voting for Trump or you're voting for Biden, but there you don't,
No,
and
you
you
can't
don't
write in a
really
name here.
and
It's
you usually don't switch parties because of the person. Where
yeah.
here there's a lot of purple states where, hey, we really like this candidate is very charismatic or she's very charismatic, or they're very charismatic, and we are switching parties for her or for them. So I think it's quite different. Another thing I wanted to add is you don't take a day off to vote here. You gotta kinda do it during
Yes.
while you're working.
That
Where
is
in
true.
Europe, it's I believe almost every place is Sundays, and you have off.
Yeah, like your job needs to, if you work in hospitality or anywhere where you have to work on a Sunday, then your job really has the legal obligation to make sure that everyone has time to go off to vote. And
I think
some
it's something
people
we
do it
should
by
adopt
mail.
here for sure.
What?
It's something we should adopt here because a lot
Yeah.
of people can't vote, miss voting because they can't get off work or, they can't get there in time.
Oh yeah, in the US, they're very famous for trying to suppress the vote
Right.
in different
Right.
ways,
Especially
gerrymandering,
minorities.
Yeah.
creating new rules, voter suppression in various different ways.
Right, exactly. And that is one of the ways because there are a lot of people who simply can't afford to take the time off
They
during the
can't.
workday to go and vote because if you work
But
two
that's why
jobs,
they do it. They don't want you
exactly.
to, because if you're rich, you can take the time off, but if you're
Right.
a worker, they don't.
Right. Like I've been very fortunate in the like when I've gone to vote, I've either gone before work, which requires me to get up early, or I've gone after work to vote. And I'm glad that my job, I have that flexibility where I could do that. But there are plenty of people out there, who are working two or three jobs who just don't have that flexibility to stop their life to go and vote, unfortunately. And then, of course, like when we do vote, it's not just for president, it's for everything from the president down to your local offices, and then, of course, even local issues. Like I feel like the last election that I took part of here in Ohio was I believe we were voting for who's going to be on the ballot here in Ohio, and also I want to say it might have been recreational marijuana use. So
That's
Yeah,
yeah,
these
cool.
referendums in California, they had
yeah,
referendums all the time, and they were quite important. Um, I do have to say that, I think we have built a system that, is cumbersome because let me tell you, if you're in a state that's super red or super blue, you're going to not feel excited to go vote if your vote doesn't matter. Okay. Why? am I gonna vote Republican if I'm a Republican in California, if it's always gonna be a blue vote for president for him, okay? So, that takes away a lot of votes, and a lot of people get, disencouraged. They're just, kind of like the wind, um comes out of their sail, they just, they're like, "Why even go vote?" And then they lose interest, then they're kind of out, they lose momentum out of the system of voting, okay? I think it should be a popular vote. I don't think it should be a representative Republican system in the sense of your vote is given to someone that then takes it and puts it somewhere for everyone to count in, on a point system.
So you're
A
basically you're
vote is a
saying,
vote. It doesn't matter if you're in Idaho or California. Your vote matters now.
yeah, I was gonna say, so basically you're saying that you would like us to not
A
use the
popular
electoral
vote.
college system.
Exactly. It's
Right.
absolutely useless. It literally was created just for white, land-owning males who
True.
were the most educated at that time in the country to represent everyone else. So that's completely irrelevant now and super biased and racist. So I think we should stop using that system and stop using, um any other kind of representative voting system. It should be popular vote. That would have changed a lot of elections. Al Gore would have won. Um, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, didn't she?
I think.
I maybe. I
Yeah,
don't
I
remember.
forget.
would have changed the outcome, of a lot of elections. And
That is an argument that I often hear after elections. Um, especially like on the news, especially from like the losing side, because obviously a lot of times the person who loses might actually have won the popular vote. And it's understandable because that is, I guess, that is one of the major issues of the United States is that um, the country was founded on being able to sort of change with the times. But like with all the laws that were created and passed, like when you look at like what the the so-called founding fathers did, they set up the country so that if when we needed to make a change, we could make a change. But the problem is that a lot of lawmakers look at what was done when the United States was founded as just law. Like we can't change that.
just
It's
like
like
the gun,
like this is the way it's always been. This is the way it's gonna always be, and it's
right, the
I
right to bear arms. They were thinking
right,
of
exactly.
muskets, not AR-15s or whatever
Yes,
they're called.
exactly. Like at the time that was written, the United States was literally in a war. So the average person had to have a gun because at any moment they might have to go outside and fight the British.
I think we need to bring in one of these log cabin Republicans and have a little conversation with them and see what
But do
they
any of
stand
us
for.
know any log cabin Republicans?
Nope.
Crickets.
Right, exactly.
But
This is
I knew one a long time ago.
I knew one a long time ago as well, but I don't currently know one. I don't think I do.
I'm sure we can find a couple. They're
That
all.
would
I'm
that'd be
sure
an interesting conversation.
I'm
What
sure they're hanging out at Outback restaurant somewhere. I don't believe in radicalism. I don't believe in extreme right or extreme left. I really think that the layman person and the person that makes this country and every country work is a rational middle of the road person. So when someone is extreme left, extreme right, with all due respect to you and to anyone else, I just find it that it's out of bounds for me.
I believe Richard Nixon would have called you the silent majority.
Me? Yes,
I
I'm
think
very
that's
much middle of the road when it comes to politics.
And mm, I'm gonna
I'm
stay
very
quiet.
much well, I'm very much you know
Martin Luther
what?
King would have called you the white liberal.
That is true.
No, no, because you know what? It doesn't mean that you're not active in your voice and using your voice. It just means that you realize that extremes don't get you anywhere. I don't think they get you anywhere. The only thing they get you are into a lot of conflict.
Common sense has just not has just kind of not
It,
because has
there
become
is no
not as
common sense.
common, like what we would normally consider common sense. And one of the reasons why I personally like love a lot of European countries because one of the things that they do is they look out for their
Yes,
people.
they look out for their
You know,
citizens, not their consumers.
right? So like when I go to Europe and I talk to people, um like they talk about, for instance, like retiring, and they're like, oh, our older people are taken care of because this is just what we do. Like, we take care of our people. Like, yeah, we don't you don't have to worry about paying for insurance because it's a part of your taxes, and because we take care of you. Like, you go to a doctor and pay $5. And I would love the United States to be more like that. But for one, the the word socialism here is just it's just like a horrible, it's almost like hate speech,
Yeah, exactly.
which
It's
I find fascinating because I'm
well,
like,
there's so many variations of it that
well,
what really exists now is this social democrat. It's really kind of left center.
I mean, what it boils down to is the people who control the narrative basically control, excuse me, basically control like what I guess in that instance, like what is and what's not possible. So like being a more socialist country, the people in control they work very hard to deter us from looking at other places like Spain, like Germany, like Europe in general, and saying, oh wait, you have yeah, you pay higher taxes, but those higher taxes, you don't have to pay for insurance because you can go to your doctor or hospital for $5. You pay higher taxes, but you get all these other things because the state is taking care of you. Whereas in the United States, it's the United States is very capitalist. We are capitalist. We are capitalist based system.
Yeah, but I think almost the entire rest of the world, especially Europe, is still capitalist. It's
They're
just,
still capitalist,
it,
but they're I want to say maybe they're more socially conscious in that,
no,
for instance, they're gonna
the
like.
big difference is inside my house and outside my house. So culturally, outside my house is Europe, which means they actually care about the neighborhoods and that there's enough lighting for the walkers and things that, and the city has to be social, everything has to make sense socially.
Mhm.
And in the US, it's all about your private neighborhood and your private house. So
Your
your neighbor,
HOA.
your HOA in your neighborhood, and my side
Mhm.
of the street is clean. I don't care about the other side. So you will literally drive a couple of miles, not even less, and
Oh
you
yeah,
are in
you
this.
get a
And I
couple of
saw this
blocks.
in LA all the time.
You saw it in my neighborhood.
I saw it in your neighborhood.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the drive 3 blocks over.
Yeah, and you go and what some houses and some subdivisions are just utterly stunning with immaculate landscaping and everything. And then you hook the corner, go on the boulevard, and it's wow, the disparity is just obscene. There's
Mhm.
people sleeping on the streets in tents, there's zombies walking around. It's just crazy. And it's because that's the streets. It's not our private neighborhood. So we don't care. It's about caring. So that's the big difference. When you actually care about the walker and the biker, then you will have, and some cities are starting to do this, you will have bike lanes that make sense because most bike lanes now here in the US still don't make sense. You can actually get more hurt more being in the bike lane than it being in the middle of the street.
But I mean, I guess what I personally feel like is that while an individual might care, um, a lot of times what we end up seeing is that the controlling parties will somehow put an end to like whatever positive change is trying to be made. You
Oh,
know.
here for sure. But
Yeah.
it's because there's no money in it, right? Sometimes you have to spend money to fund something. I'm surprised that we have public schools in this country. I really am. I'm surprised.
I feel like that is in a law somewhere that they have to provide those, but I don't know.
That's something that we should look up because the public school system is very not capitalist. You pay nothing to get. The government is paying for these wonderful teachers, low, but they're paying them, and they're building a building. Like it's just crazy, you know? And it's everywhere in the country. So it's like, okay, if you actually can do that infrastructure wise, why don't you just go a little further and do national health care? And actually, you already have the infrastructure for Medicare and Medicaid. So maybe do switch it a little bit and
Make it for all.
exactly. I,
True, but
I
then
think,
people, insurance companies would lose money.
oh,
Wah,
Abolish
wah.
them.
Robbie, Robbie needs his
Right,
own show. It's good.
right.
Mm.
No,
Anyway.
I honestly, I mean, obviously, Rob, I agree with you in that sense. I, I definitely feel like capitalism as it definitely stunts progress for sure. Like I feel like so many things that could be made better if the system weren't so sort of like greedy, you
I
know,
agree.
you know, and it's sad to see when things fail because of that greed,
Mm.
because of course that greed is only benefiting a
A certain
small
amount of people.
few
Yeah.
people, right, who have an insane amount of money, you know, whereas there are so many people who don't make a living wage,
Oh
and
yeah.
you're just like,
And we used to laugh at Mexico because of this, because there was just tons of rich billionaire, millionaire people there, and poverty, and we had a middle class here in the U.S. and now it's absolutely gone. The middle class does not exist. You have
Nope.
upper middle class to obscenely rich, and then people living in fucking tents.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all you have. Like everyone in a house is literally waiting to sell it so they can go somewhere else or leave the state.
I'm
Uh,
not. It's like I have a house. I'm not waiting to leave.
well,
Well,
you're in
the
Middle America,
majority of
but
Americans don't have savings for an emergency
Right,
no,
of
they
exactly.
over
don't.
$1,000,
That is very true.
which
Yeah.
is sad.
But honestly, a lot of people can't afford it. They
You're also
simply
not on the East Coast or West Coast where 90% of the people live.
Well,
Um,
not 90, but
yes.
yeah, no.
I
But
mean,
I mean, technically, Ohio is technically part of the East Coast.
well,
no
Actually,
East Coast
no,
baseball.
I mean, I guess it's sharing that it's
almost
Midwest,
60% of the
but
country lives in the Northeast corridor from DC to Boston. That's like it's like 56% or something like that. Um, so, but what I'm saying, and not to take away from your achievements, it's hard because everything is so freaking expensive on the East and West coasts.
I was like, you're not taking away from my achievements. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know how that statement would, but
Well, I'm just saying because it's easier to get a place in Ohio than it is New
Well,
York.
yes, of course, but that's based on like cost of living, of course, and
Right.
it's much more expensive to live in a place like New York and Boston rather than Columbus, Ohio. Same with DC. Um, but and that sort of going back to the original topic of um, elections. I don't necessarily. I mean, I'm sure that can be affected by elections, but I don't honestly know. I don't know how.
Well, I can tell you from this article that the turnout in the U.S. has soared in recent elections. This is an article. Well, it's actually a survey done by the Pew Research Center, November 1st, 2022. Turnout in the U.S. has soared in recent elections, but some measure still trails that of many other countries. Okay, voter turnout in 2020 U.S. general elections soared to levels not seen in decades, fueled by the bitter campaign between Biden and Trump, which is round
I
two
agree.
again, and facilitated by pandemic related changes to state election rules. More than 158.4 million people voted in the election, according to a Pew Research Center tabulation of official state returns, amounting to 62.8% of people of voting age, which is great, using Census Bureau estimates of the 2020 voting age population. So it has gone up, but I think people went into action because there was so much on the line.
Right. Honestly, I feel like the election, like both elections between Biden and Trump, um, most people that I know that voted for Biden, um, it's really we voted that way out of fear for
Yes.
Trump getting election. Like I can say when Trump got elected, um, like when he got elected before, um, everyone was just in pure shock. Like we could not believe
Oh, everyone was in shock.
that he got elected because all of a sudden we thought, what's going to happen to us?
Mhm.
Like what is he going to change? Like how is he going to make our like lives for gay people worse? It was so bad that
Well, I don't even care about the gay thing. I mean, I do, but I care
oh I
about
mean
just the regular stuff. I
at,
mean,
at,
the
at
guy
the
was,
time, honestly,
you
at the time, I was with my boyfriend. I remember that
dangerous.
I remember like election morning, I woke up and saw that Trump had won. And my boyfriend and I at the time, we were talking about getting married. But then we saw that he had won the election and we thought he's going well, once he takes power, we're not going to be able to get married anymore.
That's true. Yeah, I
So
thought that too.
that's when we decided to get married, and we got married. I would say we probably got married a little over a month after the election, and that was because he won, and we were like, we better do this now
Yeah.
because we don't know what rights he's going to take away. And now that he's even sort of more radicalized, you
Oh, now
know,
he's angry.
everyone is just kind of like, oh my goodness, we have to stop him. But at the same time, his side is also doing the same thing. So I'm sure there will be a lot of people out in this election for sure.
I think so too, and I think we need to remember that, it's not that you're voting for Biden, it's that you're, not voting for Trump.
Pretty much. But
So,
I
make your
know
vote
people
count.
who are like I know people who don't like either one of them, and they're like, I'm just not gonna vote. And it's just like, well, you hate to say you
No, that's
need
the
to pick
worst.
the lesser of two evils, but
If you
you know,
don't vote, it's like not making a choice on an SAT test,
Mm.
because if you don't make a choice, it actually counts against you more than if you pick the wrong one.
yeah, I mean, honestly, I would say look at the candidate that at least that you can agree at least to something on. Like if if you like Trump for whatever reason, I'm not obviously I'm not going to encourage you to vote for him, but if that is your choice, um, but if
We're
you
not
don't,
vote shaming here.
right,
Are
but
you
it's just like
voting, Robbie, in these elections?
Of course,
Yeah.
but we're not vote shaming,
yeah,
No,
at
exactly,
least they
we're not
are.
doing
We are
right,
vote shaming the people who don't vote.
right.
Yes.
It's just kind of like because there is so much at stake. There is. I mean, we've already seen like what Trump's people have been doing in taking away rights from people all across the United States, like trans kids and women. Um, like heck, he
That's
even
happening under Biden.
right, exactly. But I know, like for like here in Ohio, we're a mostly Republican state, and the Republicans are passing all of these laws that are taking away rights from people. Um, and unfortunately, the way our government is working, I mean, even though like Biden is the president, you've got a state government that's his like rival party. So, like they're removing, reproductive rights for women. They're taking away uh, trans rights for kids. And it's just kind of like it's just crazy to watch because like obviously
It's a
like
mess now.
right, like when I go and vote, obviously I'm not voting for I'm voting against them, but at the same time, they will the things that they're doing, I don't have a say in. I
Do you think that a lot of these things should be left up to the state where you live?
I you know, I
Because that's a
think
very Republican thing to believe in, for instance.
Leave
I
it to
would
the states.
I mean, I would say you leave it to the people, for instance.
Of those
But
states?
right, like so for instance, like
Like, the
if
abortion thing right now is state by state. You can get an
right.
abortion in one state,
So
but you
like if the people of Ohio voted against abortion, then it would be like, okay, then there's a lot of people in the state that I don't agree with, but but at least the people made that decision and not a group of people, not a small hand, not I guess not a small handful of people who just happened to be
And
like
a
a state
small
senator.
group of Handmaid's Tale.
Right, exactly. So like for stuff like that, I fully agree on people should vote on that. Like,
People would argue with you that it's if you leave it up to the state, a lot of people are going to die because they're not going to have access to traveling outside of the state for those services.
well, so like
And they're
one of
going to
the
do back alley abortions that will put the baby and the adult
human right,
in
In
danger.
peril. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
that's not very pro-life.
No, it's not. But I like so
Well, the lives they want to protect. Yeah.
one of the latest sort of controversies here in Ohio, for instance, was, as I mentioned earlier, the people went to vote on recreational marijuana use. So there was a bill. Basically, they said, okay, like if you vote yes to this, then basically you can grow these number of plants, you can do this, you can do that, you can it's and they had this all sort of set out, and then it was like, okay, so the people went and voted, and we were like, yeah, we think that should be legal. So as soon as we did that, the Republican Party sprang into gear and was just like, "Whoa, we need to, we need to limit this." Like they immediately went in and started trying to change what people voted on, and that caused a controversy because people were like, "Yo, this is what you said we could do if we voted yes to this, and now that we voted yes, you're saying no, 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 we're going to take it back and we're going to change a few things." And
Hmm.
people were just like, that's not right. That's not fair. um and I feel like if the people vote for something, then that's just what it should be. So, and same with like with abortion rights. I mean, obviously, if we wanted to be completely fair, I guess we could vote on it.
Well,
uh,
that's the thing is that the abortion rights were given
Roe versus Wade.
through the Supreme Court powers,
Yeah.
but it's there's no real law on the books. There should be, and I'm
Right.
sure they.
Should have been codified when we had the chance, but
Yes, exactly.
There's a lot of lobbying groups against that, but anyway, I think
mm,
there's a lot more to discuss here. We're gonna have to.
And also,
do-
I feel like Rob has been biting his tongue for a lot of it.
oh yeah. Oh,
Well,
I know.
I don't want us to get banned, but please vote, vote often, but also take care of the people around you. Be the high and mighty Christian that you say that you are. Put your money where your mouth is, and do good things to good people. Um,
I
being a
agree.
landlord's not a job. Wait, no. Uh, just
Be a good person.
what regardless of the outcome of the election, people need to look out for one for each other more now, unfortunately, and the system's not going to save
I
us.
think
The
it's about
system is
your
working the way that it is.
if we're
I can
That's the way
all
the
think
system
about
is.
if we all yeah I
It's
agree
not
with you. I think
broken, it's made this way.
if we think about our local communities and how we can help our neighbors, our family, our friends, and we all do that, then it doesn't matter what system you live in, or you can make a huge dent and effort in someone else's lives, basically.
Yeah.
Um, well, thank you guys for joining me on today's episode. We're going to be talking about this throughout the year. It's an election year in the U.S. and also in many places in Europe and throughout the world. So I think, and we're going to give Robbie a voice here too. I think he was very quiet on today's episode, probably because we shamed him. Um,
We did not shame
we
him.
didn't shame him.
No.
No, it's all love.
Yeah.
It's
Just,
love.
you know, I just wish there were better candidates. That's all.
Yeah.
I think like we all do. So
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we're wrapping it up and we'll talk about this in other episodes. Please stay tuned. Make sure if you like our episodes to like this one and subscribe. And also, I want to let you guys know how to register to vote. Go on USA.gov in the United States and it'll walk you through the steps on how to register. You can vote federally, state, or local elections. Also, register through vote.gov. Thanks again, guys, and we'll see each other on another episode of The Aging Queen.
Bye.
bye.